Hello, what is up, everybody? Thank you for joining me on the podcast. Today, the Atlanta Falcons officially announced who their new head coach is going to be. The Dallas Mavericks will be without Rajon Rondo for a little while, and Johnny Manziel entered himself into a treatment facility, but we don't know exactly what kind of treatment he's going to get. Oh, and by the way, something happened over the weekend. You may have heard about it. It's called the Super Bowl. We're going to dive right into that, recap, relive the tons of amazing moments that happened in one of the best Super Bowl matches I have ever witnessed. All that and much, much more, as always, right here on Into the Void.
What you want? Come on. Come on.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the Void. I am your host, as always, RJ Voyd, on this February 2nd, 2015 episode of the podcast. It's the day after the big game, the day after the Super Bowl. The biggest day in sports all year round. And it's behind us now. Now we got to wait a whole nother year. But we'll get into the game here a little bit shortly. The first thing that I wanted to talk about here, real briefly, we're gonna got a couple of real quick news things that I felt like bringing up for whatever reason. Then we're gonna jump right into the Super Bowl, which is what I plan to spend the most time on here today because, well, it's the effing Super Bowl, of course. But the Atlanta Falcons announced officially that Dan Quinn is going to be their head coach. Dan Quinn, the current, well, I guess not current now, but for this season was the Seahawks defensive coordinator, and had been for the past 2 seasons. He's been there since 2013. He agreed to, as far as what I've read and what I've researched here, he agreed to a 5-year contract. And he going towards the end of the season, he was pretty much one of the real forerunners that everybody knew was going to get a head coaching opportunity come this coming off season. But there's something a little bit different about him, considering the fact how much success he's had with that defense. He's, whether or not Pete Carroll is the guy behind the Legion of Boom, or if it's this guy Dan Quinn, I don't personally know. I don't follow him that much, but just the sheer fact alone that he was the guy in charge of this Legion of Boom defense, this historic defense, it truly says a lot. And with the Falcons situation, I think this, for all intents and purposes, on the outside, and for the amount of knowledge I have on Dan Quinn and I have on the Falcons situation right now, I think this is, generally speaking, probably the perfect fit, or a really good fit for him, considering that the Falcons, all of their trouble right now is, for the most part, in the defense. So you got yourself a nice solid offense. You got a quarterback who's established himself and can be on that elite level, if not just below that elite level, right underneath of it in that next tier, in Matt Ryan. You got a solid running game, and you have one of the best wide receivers in the game today in Julio Jones. So you know that offense, for the most part, is pretty well built, I guess you could say. But their defense is what they were really lacking. Their defense is what they really need a lot of help in. And who better to bring in? Like, I know Rex Ryan. I keep going back to Rex Ryan because I have a connection to him that I'm a big fan of his. But looking at that, if for the Falcons team, if you weren't going to be able to get Rex Ryan, if you weren't willing to pursue Rex Ryan, I can't think of a better option, especially out there right now, than the defensive coordinator, who has gotten a lot of good word of mouth, I guess you could say. A lot of has a great reputation for the years he spent in the league. He's been in the league here since 2013, so I guess that's 2 seasons ago. He was their defensive coordinator then of course this year. Before that, he was in I can't remember if he was the head coach or the defensive coordinator for the University of Florida, but and then he was in the NFL prior to that. So, but I know that he's just got a really good reputation, and he's been the talks of many sport NFL analysts, and he's been up there as far as the names of people who are going to get a head coaching job. And so it's no surprise. I mean, I think that these rumors or this news has kind of been floating around for a little bit for the throughout the playoffs. But obviously, because he remained in the playoffs with the Seahawks up until the Super Bowl yesterday, he wasn't. Nobody was allowed to make an agreement on anything. He was able to interview for it and everything. So it was being speculated, especially considering the Falcons were the only team left who did not announce officially a head coach. So it was kind of it was pretty much pretty well speculated, I guess you could say, but and so nobody's surprised by it. But I think that this is a really good fit. If you need if you're looking into a defensive minded coach, and that's who you're going to go after, as far as filling your head coaching position, why not? I mean, who can be a better option out there than the person who orchestrated this Legion of Boom? You know, whether or not it's Steve Carroll or Dan Quinn, whoever's the real mastermind behind it, I don't think it matters. For him just to be in control of that secondary, of that entire defense. I mean, like I said last week, the Seattle Seahawks defense as a whole is a very, very tough group, a very good group of guys. And so this to me, on paper and looking into it with from the outsider looking in, this looks like a really good fit for the Falcons. And so 5 years. Good job by the Falcons, I guess. It was announced today is when I heard it the first time. But other news real quick. Dallas Mavericks are going to be without Rajon Rondo for a little while. I'm not sure exactly how long, but on Saturday in a game against the Orlando Magic, just a few moments into the game, Rajon Rondo suffered facial fractures, I guess, because somebody kneed him in the face. So that's a pretty nasty injury to have, but hopefully it won't be out too long for the Mavericks. Like I said, I think he's going to be. It might have been my very first episode that I talked about the trade happening and whatnot. But I think Rajon Rondo just is a wonderful addition to the Mavericks team, and I think he's done real well there since getting traded from Boston. And so hopefully he'll be back, and then the Mavericks can continue to make their way into the Western Conference playoff picture if they're not there already. I don't follow basketball that much, if you haven't guessed. But another news, Johnny Manziel, it was announced today that he entered himself into a training facility. The word I heard, the quote that I heard was to better himself. So I really don't know if it's like maybe a Alcoholics Anonymous addiction, like kind of treatment center like that, or if it's, just for whatever reason, or maybe it's a publicity stunt to kind of make people buy into him. Since a lot of people kind of turned their backs on him after how he acted during his rookie season, this might be one of those things where his agent was just like, look, you should do this, or his publicist or something like that. You should do this to kind of clear your name, to make people think that you're all in and are taking this whole thing seriously. But as far as I know right now, the kind of treatment he's put himself in hasn't been revealed, or it's been unclear. But personally, I just find that, especially looking at Manziel throughout his rookie season, seeing what he's done, I just think that he is a major distraction. And the kicker about it is that the Cleveland Browns, who really have done a 180 this whole season. They really turned their organization around. I think their organization is definitely going in the right direction. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're going to be in the next Super Bowl or they're even going to make the playoffs next year, because I don't believe that it's going to be that fast of a recovery. But I really do. I get the feel from this organization that they are heading in the right direction. And so but that all being said, they kind of wasted the first round pick on Menzel, because he didn't play the majority of the season. He started just a few games, I think maybe 2 or 3. I'm not sure right off the top of my head, and even in those games, he did not play overly well in either one. I think he came into a game briefly in the fourth quarter for who's their starting quarterback? Hoyer. I think he came in for Hoyer had a decent outing there. Enough to get everybody all, riled up and hot and heavy for Menzel for some reason. And then he started the next 2 games, and he really just did not play. He very disappointing. And then he kept finding himself, for his bad play, he found himself in the newspapers and the media, the websites and all that kind of stuff, the news websites. But then his off-the-field distractions were getting in the way as well. So, really my honest opinion that I've garnered from Menzel throughout his rookie season is that he's a waste. He's one of those guys who's privileged as a kid, and he's not taking this seriously. I get the idea that he's just a playboy, kind of a party guy who's just there to enjoy the fact that he's making this lot of money. He's not going to take it seriously, and therefore he's not going to be successful in the NFL, especially for a prolonged period of time. But the only other news I wanted to get to real fast, I just wanted to throw this out there. I watched this game, the majority of this game yesterday as well, but the St. Louis Blues continued their winning streak. They now won 5 straight, and they are playing really good. St. Louis Blues, that's obviously hockey, NHL. They defeated the Washington Capitals yesterday 4-3, and that's including an eviction. Eviction, is that the right word? Eviction. He got ejected. I'm sorry. That includes an ejection from the game, early injury to one of their better players and captain. And so all of that stuff that was going against the Blues, they still came out and won 4-3, won their 5th straight, and really continued this very, very good run that they've had the last couple of weeks here. And so they've really pushed themselves up to a very high spot in that Eastern Conference, as far as who are the teams to beat. And I think that they, come playoff time, are going to be one of the teams that maybe gives the Islanders, teams like the Islanders, the Rangers, a run for their money. Now, I haven't seen enough of the Blues plays. I just know that they're on a hot streak right now. Obviously, those kind of things happen. You get hot streaks, you get cold streaks. It's going to happen, but they are playing extremely well right now, and I really like the team as well. They got a good young team. They got a really solid, really good goaltender in Elliott, and they got such young talent on the team. The kid Vladimir Tarasenko he's unbelievable. He's a badass. But yeah, so we got the Blues continued their winning streak. Menzel's finding himself somewhere, and then the Rajon Rondo is going to be out, and Dan Quinn, former Seahawks defensive coordinator, will become the Falcons head coach for theoretically the next 5 years. But that all being said, the real big thing, Super Bowl 49. I've been saying it for the past 2 weeks. This is a great matchup, and it was a great matchup. I remember saying, I've said it a couple times, how I can't remember the last time a Super Bowl had this balanced of a matchup, and it was one of the more the funny thing about it was I was not as excited as I should have been because I didn't care about either one of these teams. I don't like the Patriots, and I really don't like the Seahawks. At least for I don't like the Patriots organization. I'll never be a Patriot fan. I'll never root for the Patriots. There's an exception to that. I'll get to that later. I'll never root for the Patriots. The Seahawks, on the other hand, I just don't like their team as it is right now. I don't like their personality. I don't like the way that they are presenting themselves. I find them to be like that kind of... I just got the mindset that they are the villains, the biggest villains, the big baddies of the NFL. And it makes it so hard for me to root for them, to want to see them succeed. And so here we go. We got a Super Bowl. Two teams that I really could not care any less about, and it still was one hell of a matchup. It was a very exciting game, to say the least. I mean, you talk about all of the hype going up to this game. Deflategate, Richard Sherman talking trash to his own commissioner, Marshawn Lynch continuing his boycott, I guess, of the media or whatever it is that you want to call what he's doing. All of these storylines and everything coming up to it. The fact that these two defenses are actually, you got the Seahawks defense, who is this historic and one of the people are calling them one of the best ever defenses to ever be put together. And then you got the Patriots defense, who for the first time in a long time are actually looking really, really good. Then you got the two quarterbacks, who you got Tom Brady, who will go down not only as a first ballot Hall of Famer, but probably in the top 5 all-time quarterbacks in the league. And then you got Russell Wilson, who's this young kid who's got a really passionate, dedicated fan following, who a lot of experts are calling him to be a future great as well. Then you got, just two solid. You got Marshawn Lynch, who is probably the best running back in the league today. And then you had LeGarrette Blount, who was coming off a great game against the Indianapolis Colts, and his adventure he's had this season, coming from the Pittsburgh Steelers and walking off the field then, and then next thing you know, he's on the Patriots again and he's in the Super Bowl. All of these storylines and then just looking at these two teams as a whole, just how good they are. This is the first time in a while that I've seen, I can literally look at this matchup and say the two best teams in the NFL, the best team in the NFC and the best team in the AFC, both made it to the Super Bowl. And so it was such a great matchup, and it did not disappoint whatsoever. Some of the things that happened in the game, this is just some. First and foremost, the Patriots running game really was never able to get anything going. I said that Blount, when previewing the matchup, I compared Blount to LeGarrette Blount to Marshawn Lynch, and in reality, I understand that that's kind of that's nowhere near close as far as actual skill and everything. What I just meant was Blount coming off of that good game. I thought that he was going to be a little bit more of a pivotal part of the offense that the Patriots are going to run. That didn't happen. The Patriots, all throughout the playoffs, using these, I don't want to say trick plays, but using these kind of misleading, the substitution of the linemen and everything, I kind of figured that was going to continue. It really didn't. There was a few times in the game that they used a formation where there was a substituted eligible receiver on the line, but I don't believe anyway that it ever amounted to any of those big plays. As far as I can remember, I remember 2 of them, if I'm not mistaken. I remember 2 instances, and they're both run plays, and they're, I'm guessing, just there to kind of try and throw the Seattle Seahawks defense, kind of throw them off track a little bit, maybe make them think about the substitutions, and that just goes right back into the fact that Bill Belichick is such a genius when it comes to game planning. I mean, it's almost as if he had this whole idea. You know what I mean? It's almost as if at the beginning of the playoffs he was like, all right, we're going to start this. We're going to start doing this at the beginning. We're going to continue doing it all the way until we win the AFC Championship. And when we get to the Super Bowl, then we're just going to dial it back, and we're going to throw it at them a couple times without actually utilizing it, and it's going to be one extra thing that they have to prepare for that takes away from the other things that they're preparing for. It's like it just goes to show you just how intelligent, how well that Bill Belichick and his coaching staff. I'm not going to take anything away from his coaching staff. Josh, I think his offensive coordinator's name is Josh McDaniels. He deserves a lot of credit, obviously. And then Matt Patricia, I think their defensive coordinator, he deserves a lot of credit as well. So throughout this game, now the first quarter was really slow. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. The first quarter of it, I found myself kind of starting to believe that maybe this was going to be a disappointing game. Maybe this was going to be just a boring, nobody showed up for the game until eventually somebody blows up and one team's going to end up blowing out the other one. That's kind of the impression I got. I've seen it before. I've seen it happen a lot of times. And then the second quarter hit. And even though the Patriots started to come off hot on the second quarter, it really seemed like the Seahawks were also starting to get their gears together. One really cool aspect about it. All right, first off, the Seattle Seahawks cornerback, Jeremy Lane, right? He catches an interception late in the first quarter. Tom Brady was intercepted twice in the game. Jeremy Lane catches an interception, and as the Seahawks, because this may have already been, if you look at it, this could have possibly been a really big difference maker. Lane catches an interception, but gets injured as he's tackled, and he never returns to the game. I can't remember. I think it was a wrist injury or an arm injury, but he gets injured on that interception play after he gets tackled, and he never returns to the game. And all of his replacements, I don't have any names. I can't remember their names. But all of his replacements that came up after him were basically picked apart by Tom Brady throughout the entire rest of the game. So there is an argument to be said that if Lane does not get injured, if Lane does stay in the game, because Lane's a pretty decent cornerback in and of his own right. I mean, he's not in the Richard Sherman level of defensive backs. Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas, they're not in the same class as him. But Lane, considering he's the fourth wheel there, he still does a very good job in and of his own right there. And so if he's not injured, there's an argument that can be made that takes away a big element of the Patriots' offense and a lot of their gains as far as what they did later on in the game is concerned there, and there's a chance that maybe the outcome of the game is a little different. One of the biggest heroes of this game, and my personal favorite moment of the game, was an unknown receiver by a kid by the name of Chris Matthews. Right. First of all, he had 4 receptions for 109 yards and a touchdown in this game. His first reception of the game was his first reception of his entire NFL career. The Seahawks signed him, I think, from the Canadian Football League, but he'd only been playing in the NFL on the Seahawks for a little while. Never caught a pass until today, or yesterday rather, until the Super Bowl. 4 receptions, 100+ yards, and a touchdown. And you got to believe this kid felt like Superman. I mean, even though that they lost, yes, spoiler, the Seahawks lost in case you didn't know, 28-24. But this kid felt like Superman. I mean, how amazing is that? Where you are working, there was somebody who mentioned he was working at a Foot Locker as well. You're working at a Foot Locker. You get the call. You go try out for the Seahawks. You get on the team, and all year long, however long you're on the team, you don't really see anything going, and then you're in the Super Bowl, and you get not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 chances to look like a hero, and he made the best of all 4 of those receptions. Trust me. The big one, like I said, my favorite moment of the game was a long pass. I don't have the yardage or anything like that here in front of me to look at, but all I can remember is, so Russell Wilson's throwing the pass deep down the right field line. I want to say it was third down, so it was like their last chance on the drive. and he's well covered. You got the Patriots defender, probably Browner. I'm not sure, but it wasn't Revis, because I was watching Revis throughout the game too, just seeing how well he did, how well he didn't do, or whatever. So you got the Patriots cornerback or defender right on top of this kid, Chris Mathers, and he's a tall kid too. He's a big guy, but there's defenders right on him, right? And he goes up, and nobody thinks that he can make this catch. And he goes up really without looking. So he goes up, catches the ball with the defender between him and the ball. I mean, it's hard to explain to you just by talking here, but it was really an amazing catch. And that was in the first half. I don't know what quarter, but that was the biggest moment in the game for me. Like, when I was watching it, that's the moment that keeps flashing back in my mind, is that catch. It was so perfect. It was a beautiful catch. It was a beautiful play, and just knowing that this kid was basically an unknown receiver until now, no reception in the NFL, just kind of made it even that much sweeter. And so really props to this kid who just had an amazing game and played his heart out. You know, like, this is a kid, like I said, working for a Foot Locker, thinking his dream of playing in the NFL, let alone playing in the Super Bowl, was probably never going to come true. And here he is, his first catch ever and his first touchdown ever as an NFL player, and it's in the biggest possible game that you can get. That's an incredible. That must have been just a wonderful, amazing feeling for him. Right, even that in of itself, you know. But yeah, it was. And this game was full of moments. That's the thing. This game was full of moments just like that, though. You had another catch later on, late in the fourth quarter, when the Seahawks were driving down the field on their potential game-winning drive, right? And you thought it was all over. It was like third down or whatever again, and just like shade. And then part of you sitting there thinking, all right, they just blew it. There's like less than a couple. I think there might have been less than 2 minutes left in the game. I mean, it was that close to the end, and you may have either been thinking. Part of you would be thinking, oh, it's third down and long or whatever, and you know, they're not going to be able to do anything with it. And then another part of you is like, wait a minute, I said the same thing 2 weeks ago in the Green Bay game, and look what they did there. So it was a really intense moment, especially at the last 5 minutes, just like the NFC Championship game. But Russell Wilson, again, third down, throws it deep down the right side. Jermaine Kirsch, their tight end, right? Catches it, right? Bobbles it, and for a split second you're sitting there thinking, oh, that's an incomplete pass. Game over. The Patriots just won. But the way it bobbled, right? He falls to the ground, but the ball never hits the ground. He doesn't have it in his hands, but it never hits the ground. And just the way he's able, it fell right into his hands. Boom, you got yourself a 33-yard catch, and you're setting yourself up right there for a 4-yard Marshawn Lynch run to put Seahawks on the 1-yard line of the New England Patriots. And that's the moment you're just like, holy damn, this game is over. They did it again. They did that comeback, like, last-second game-winning drive. And then you got the moment that, from what I can tell, is going to live in infamy, as they say. You got the moment that everybody today is talking about. And for all intents and purposes, we're just going to refer to it as the play call, or the call. Let's just go with that. The call. I like that. The call. People are referring to this as the single worst call in Super Bowl history. And maybe it is. You know, I've only been on this earth for 22 years, and I've seen not that many Super Bowls, to be honest, because, you know, I haven't always been a football fan, and so it may be the worst call. It certainly looks like it is to me, because I don't remember any worse calls. But so you're on the 1-yard line. The Seahawks are. They got the ball. They need 1 yard to score a touchdown to win the game, right? 1 friggin' yard. You got Marshawn Lynch in the backfield. What are you going to do? You're going to hand it off to Lynch. You're going to hand it to Lynch, let him run that 1 yard in, and boom, you won the game. 2 straight Super Bowls. But that's not what happened. whoever made the play call, Corral, their offensive coordinator, I don't know. They don't give it to Lynch. It's a pass. Russell Wilson throws it right down the middle into the end zone, but it's picked off by a New England Patriot defender by the name of Butler. I want to say Butler. Something Butler. And it's picked off in the end zone with 26 seconds left in the game. And that moment, as much as an unbelievable moment as it is, 1 yard line, you expect the Seahawks to score the touchdown. Even when he doesn't hand it to Lynch, you're like, oh, it's all right. He's gonna throw a touchdown, no problem. He's gonna throw it to somebody. And even if he doesn't, if it's an incomplete pass, you hand it to Lynch for third down, and he's in the end zone. You just won the game, right? And just the fact that it's picked off in the end zone, 26 seconds left in the game, it's just like, oh man. It wasn't like a gunfight, you know. It wasn't like score of the game, that is. And it wasn't like this back and forth, like, oh, they have the lead. Okay, now they have the lead. Okay, now they got the lead back. You know, it wasn't one of those games, but just the momentum changes that happened in this game, back and forth. The momentum was it was unbelievable. And it really, like I said, first quarter, to me anyway, boring. I was bored. There was a point in the first quarter where I was actually bored. But 2, 3, and 4, it was an amazing game. It really is. And there are people out there calling it one of the best Super Bowls of all time. Again, I really don't like agreeing with those statements. This is just me personally, because I don't feel like I've seen enough of them, you know? I don't feel like I've seen enough Super Bowls in my 22-year lifespan, where in my 22 years of living, where I can agree that this is the best one. You know, I've maybe seen 10 Super Bowls in my life, you know, maybe a little more than that. But I'm just saying, like, I don't feel like I've seen enough to really be able to agree with that. But will I agree it was a great game and one that I will never forget? I gotta say, it was one of those games that just had me on the edge of my seat, especially in the fourth quarter, where it was just. And here's the thing, right? It was a great game, just plain and simple. It was a great game. The Russell Wilson interception, the Chris Matthews reception, that the catch I just got done talking about, Jermaine Kearse's juggling catch for 33 yards, right? Just an amazing. All of these moments, right? And it's those kind of moments that you always live. Like, whenever I think back on Super Bowls now, 20 years from now, I would bet you that if somebody asked me what my favorite Super Bowl moment was, I'd probably still going to be at that point saying Chris Matthews' reception. I don't know what it was. I haven't heard anybody else talk about it, you know, so it wasn't anything that was mind-blowing, but just I really liked the story that came back with this kid. And to me, it looked amazing. It looked like it was an amazing catch. The Kearse catch, I think people are making a bigger deal about it than it is. It fell right into his hands. It wasn't like he was doing a whole lot of skill with it. He fell on his back and it fell right into his hands. So, I mean, that's my personal opinion on it. And I only saw the play once. I saw it live and then it moved on. They showed 2 replays of it, I guess. But I might have been looking away or something like that. But I saw it once live, and that was my initial reaction to it. But I know that the Giants Super Bowl, the one-handed catch, the helmet catch, I guess you could say. I think his name's Tyree. Is that who it was? I know that was a pretty damn good moment too. So that one's got to be up there as well. But yeah, all in all, just an amazing game, a fantastic game. Did not disappoint. I told you it was going to be a great matchup, and it was, certainly. And in the final, so anyway, Russell Wilson gets picked off in the end zone. Patriots get the ball. Basically, they're just going to take a knee. There's a penalty there that kind of makes it that basically time starts to slow down, right? And because of the fact that, all right, there's 20-something seconds left in the game. I think there's 20 at this point where I'm about to talk about. And if you're a Seahawks player, you know, all right, we We screwed the pooch here. We screwed ourselves out of a Super Bowl victory here. And so naturally tempers, emotions are going to be high, right? Michael Bennett, one of the, I think he's a defensive lineman. Yeah. Michael Bennett, the defensive lineman for Seattle. Basically, first off, so Tom Brady gets on the field, right? They go for the kneel down. Bill Belichick calls for a timeout, right? And this is just what I've heard. I didn't notice this myself. I don't have enough football knowledge to be able to get this from what happened, but I've heard that, all right, what probably happened was Bill Belichick said to Tom Brady, see if you can get an encroachment penalty here. See if you can get them offsides or anything like that so we can move a little further up the field to close out this game so we're not right on. So we take away the risk of a safety for the most part, So they call a timeout, they get back, and sure enough, Michael Bennett, encroachment, offsides. I mean, and I'm watching this, right? And I see that you got the Patriots lineman, the center, right? And Tom Brady, they're doing like the silent count thing, right? And so you got the center, and he's moving his head. He's trying to trick the defenders out. And you can tell, dude, Bennett, he's fighting it at first, like he sees him saying, he's like, no, hold myself back. But by the time they call this penalty, he was hovering over the center. I mean, his body was over the center. Like, he didn't even want to move at first. And then they threw the penalty. Finally, he actually, budges and starts the play after he's already hovering over the center, which should have been called anyway, first off, beforehand. But then he starts to go for the play because he thinks it started. They call the penalty, and this was another. If Chris Matthews' reception is my favorite moment of the game, this one is a close second because the penalty, so they call the encroachment penalty, and all of a sudden I just see bodies falling all over the place. A brawl happened. And I know that Gronkowski and Irvin were two, Rob Gronkowski, the tight end for the Patriots, and then the linebacker for the Seahawks, Bruce Irvin. They were the two main combatants, if you will. But it really just, it was just like, those movies, right? Like, like Lord of the Rings or Braveheart or, all those like old school war movies where you got the two armies on either side and then just running at each other. It really reminded me, because that's all I could think about when I was watching this, is it just looked like the moment that those two armies collide and all you see is like the bodies of like the people getting knocked out and flown through the air, and it looked so comical like that and so intense like that. That's what it reminded me of. That's all I could keep thinking. This huge brawl takes out. Bruce Irvin gets ejected from the game for instigating the brawl. They determined he was the one that started it. And look, by the way, that makes Bruce Irvin the very first player to ever be ejected from a Super Bowl. How's that? How would you like that? How would you like being known as the one person that was ever ejected from the Super Bowl? That's gotta kill. And it wasn't even for a winning effort either. It was to a losing effort, 20-something seconds left in the game. But, and a lot of people are giving him shit. A lot of people are saying that it was an embarrassment. And, like, look, and it was. It really was. There's really no reason why it shouldn't happen. Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy watching it, because it was a lot of fun watching it. Seeing just how intense. Obviously, if I was uncomfortably, it was so intense that I was actually starting to feel uncomfortable, like I didn't feel like, I just felt like I needed to move, get up and move, you know what I mean? One of those real intense. If that was me watching it from my home, in my bedroom, right? You gotta think, dude, these guys on the field were feeling it, to think that they were about to win. They had just got done driving down the field, and nobody thought that they were going to lose. They were like, yes, we got this in the bag. We're getting a touchdown, especially when they hit the 1-yard line. We got a touchdown. It's us. 2 Super Bowls in a row, and to get that taken away from them like that with an interception, I cannot begin to imagine just how emotionally draining that must be. And so a lot of people are giving Bruce Irvin and Everybody else, specifically on the Seahawks side of the ball, they're giving them a lot of crap for it, saying like, oh, you should be better than this. I honestly, even though I know that they're right, they should know better than this. This was a disgrace. Somebody this morning on the radio called it a disgrace. It was just, and I understand that. But if I was in the same position, and this is why I'm not a professional football player, among hundreds of other reasons, of course, but dude, I wouldn't be able to handle myself either. Having something like that, emotionally trying on me happen that quick, I would be losing my damn mind too. You know, I would be so emotional, I'd be fighting people too. You know, and so a lot of people are giving them shit, and I understand why, and I know that they're right. But at the same time, I'm not taking anything away from Irvin, specifically Irvin. We're gonna use him to bunch up the entire core because he's the one that really became. He's the one that they figured out was the reason for it, I guess you could say. He was the scapegoat there. But it was... I mean, I don't take anything away from him, you know. I'd probably be doing the same thing, and I'm surprised that these professional players have that much, you know... what's the word? That much... control, self-control, where they don't do this on a regular basis. You know, if this happened in the regular season, week 1, I'd be flipping shit. You know what I mean? And so I don't take anything away from them for that. Richard Sherman is set to have Tommy John surgery on his injured arm as well. Now that the season's over, obviously we saw him injure his arm against the Packers. And he did play really well in the Super Bowl, I will admit. And it's just the thing that gets to me the most, right? And it hurts me to say this. It physically hurts me to have to say this. Because of the way the Seahawks carry themselves. Because of, you got Richard Sherman and him not being able to close his mouth, you know? Him just being a loudmouth. Marshawn Lynch with his antics and not willing to talk to the media. I mean, Marshawn Lynch, if he has some kind of social anxiety, I respect that. There are times where I feel like I have some form of like social anxiety. You know, I'm out in public, I'm out in crowds, and I just get uncomfortable and really nervous and just anxious. And so sometimes there are times where I feel like I'm the same. I have that problem too. And so if that's the problem, fine. I have all the respect in the world for that. And I agree that if he shouldn't have to talk. I agree with the fact that he shouldn't have to talk to the media if he doesn't want to. But now, and at first I was on his side, but now it just seems like he's playing this up just for his own recognition. You know what I mean? Like he's just playing this in and phoning it in. You know what I mean? And then you got Richard Sherman, who talks so much shit. Like the problem I have with Richard Sherman is he is, all right, the arguments that he's the greatest cornerback in the league. I don't believe that. My top 3, Darrelle Revis, Patrick Peterson, then Richard Sherman, right? But Richard Sherman talks so much shit that it's just like it's almost as if he doesn't realize the fact that half of the reason why he's so recognized, I believe firmly that his recognition, popularity, and all that stuff has just as much to do with, if not more, with the fact that he can't shut his mouth. With the way that he's put himself out there through like social media and him talking trash and all that crap, than it is just on what he does on the field when he plays the game. He is immensely talented. Just shut up. That's all I ask from him. Just be quiet. Go out there and show us you're the greatest cornerback. Don't tell us. Don't tell me if you're the best. Let me decide that. Go out there, show me, and I'll decide that. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you go one-on-one with somebody and beat them. Part of what's going to make me say who the best cornerback in the league, just cornerback an example, but it goes for all positions, is how you handle yourself off the field too. You got Richard Sherman on the sidelines, going to the camera, pointing up his 2 finger and his 4 fingers, going 24 because Darrelle Revis just got beat for a touchdown pass. Well, I'm not going to get into that. Darrelle Revis, just for the sake of argument, Darrelle Revis got caught up with the referee, kind of pulled him off. At least it looked that way for me. But yeah, he did get beat. Fine. It's going to happen eventually. It happened to you a couple of times this season. You got beat. Shut up. Get back on the sideline. Wait for your time to go out there to play. be quiet. Show me you're the best. Don't tell me you're the best. Just be quiet. I'm sick of hearing your voice as it is. But just the simple fact of how they carry themselves going back. I kind of got off topic there. Just the way that they handle themselves, the Seahawks, all season long for the past 2 seasons. I cannot stand them so much, and it hurts me to say this physically. I found myself during this game actually rooting for the Patriots. And now's the exception that I mentioned earlier. I actually found myself rooting, hoping that the Patriots would win. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, my sworn enemies. I was rooting for them. That's how much the Seattle Seahawks are getting on my nerves. And just the entire team just seems to be a bunch of clowns, with the exception of Russell Wilson. I will say that. At least, and I'm sure that most of the players on there, I'm just saying the persona that they are bringing to the forefront of there. They look like a bunch of clowns. Sherman, Lynch, you got Doug Baldwin with his freaking out when they won the NFC Championship. You know, all the players. You got the one guy riding a bicycle throughout the field after they won the game against Packers. I mean, it's just, give me a break. Are you guys clowns or are you guys football players? So I found myself rooting for the Patriots, and I found myself actually happy that they won. How ridiculous is that? I'm a Jets fan. I cannot stand the organization. I cannot stand their head coach, and I cannot stand their quarterback. And I was rooting for them to win. That's the state of mind that the Seahawks have me in right now. It's unbelievable. Tom Brady wins his 3rd Super Bowl MVP, and I believe that ties him for the most in history. I think Terry Bradshaw and Bart Starr, I think, are the only other 2 quarterbacks with the 3 MVPs. I may be wrong about that. Remember, all of this stuff is just off the top of my head, you guys. So, I mean, I'm bound to make a lot of mistakes. I don't do this for a living. This is a hobby, and I love sports, but I'm not an encyclopedia up here in my brain. But yeah, I think it's Bart Starr and Terry Bradshaw, I think, are the only other quarterbacks in history to have 3 Super Bowl MVP awards on their resume. As much as I hate him, dude, Tom Brady, he's going to go down in history as one of the best, if not the best. It's unbelievable. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Once again, this is the Into the Void podcast. I'm your host, as always, RJ Voyd. Thank you once again for joining me. Hope you had a great time. Hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. It was a very memorable Super Bowl, and I enjoyed the game thoroughly. I thought it was amazing. I really did. Oh, boy. But until next time, you guys, you can follow, share, like, all that crap on our Facebook page. That's Facebook.com/Into the Void, Void spelled VOYD, and Twitter /RJ Voyd. That's RJAYVOYD. You can also just head to our website to view all the brand new episodes, up-to-date episodes in the podcast, as well as the blog. I'm really gonna aim towards getting the blog a lot more exposure. I'm gonna be adding a lot more stuff to the blog than usual, or at least that's the plan I have. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. But yeah, check us out at our website, Into the Void. Again, Void spelled VOYD, www.intothevoid.weebly.com. You can also find us on iTunes and Stitcher, our episodes of the podcast, that is. And be on the lookout for our YouTube channel, which I'm currently in the middle of developing. I'm trying to put a wide amount of videos on there before I start really pushing it, as far as telling you guys about it and spreading the word about it. I want to get a nice, good portfolio on there first. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you once again for joining me. I will see you next week, and hope you enjoy the rest of your guys' week. Bye-bye.